you a couple weeks ago that the very first thing that I was going to do with the Cozy Earth promo code that I've got was buy the pajama set. Let me tell you, I did that. Like day one, I did that. And the pajama set is so comfortable and luxurious and like soft and silky. I already said luxurious, but I'm going to say it again, luxurious. This is why this is like a dream partnership for me. Cozy Earth is really so focused on like creating that sanctuary place for people in their 5 to 9. So like when you're done with work and you take that deep breath and like you finally close your laptop, you have some dinner, you take a shower, you unwind. That's like the feeling that Cozy Earth is all about creating. And I'm telling you now, after trying the sheet set, I was already convinced. But then when buying the pajama set, I was like, oh, okay. Now I'm a big, big fan. Very, very big fan. And when I really like take a step back and think about why comfort is so important to me, it's like you spend all of this time and energy like bulldozing through the day, just like having a coffee, getting up, going for a workout, getting stuff done as a mother, like getting my kids ready for the day and giving them breakfast and like all this stuff, right? Changing diapers still. It's just like a constant sprint. And then when you finally get to unwind for the day, it's like, okay, you can finally breathe. And so with Cozy Earth, as I mentioned, I have the bamboo sheet set, and these sheets are so breathable. And the same goes for the pajamas because the bamboo pajamas are truly so luxurious. And really, frankly, when I talked about like, if you're still sleeping in that old baggy stretched out t-shirt, it's time for an upgrade. I said that the last time. I upgraded. It's meaningful. It had a significant impact on my sleep. Just being able to like feel really comfortable when unwinding and going to sleep makes a huge difference. At least it did for me. It's really the kind of comfort that makes you want to lounge and relax all day. And as someone who's a really, really bad relaxer, like really struggle just kind of unwinding and relaxing and taking a load off. These between the sheet set and the pajama set, I really have figured out that part of relaxing is just like leaning into what feels comfortable and cozy. And we're going into the summer months and it gets really hot in New York and most places around the world. And having something that's breathable and soft and like cooling is really important. At least for me, I tend to run warm. And so, again, what I really love about Cozy Earth is that there's this commitment to quality in every way, the commitment to quality in how we create a peaceful environment for ourselves, especially after work, and also in what the products are all about. Like the products obviously are luxurious, but they're also made ethically and they're produced responsibly. So when you invest in better sleep, you're also investing in something good. So you can like relax and feel comfortable and also, be excited that you've invested in something that does good for others and does good for the planet. And, if you are not sure that Cozy Earth is for you, that's okay. Don't worry. Cozy Earth gives you 100 nights to decide. 100, that's a lot of nights. That's more than 3 months of nights. And if you don't love it, you can send it back. And with that, there is also a 10-year warranty on what you purchase because they believe in their products. And that means that you can also believe in their products. So if you're ready to turn your bedroom, your home into a true retreat, an oasis, a place that feels like a luxury hotel, but even better, go to cozyearth.com and use my code HUMANHR for 40% off. And you can use it on anything. Like I said, I used it on the pajamas. My best friend bought the sheet set and she was like, hey, Oprah and Kris Jenner and we all have the same sheet set now. And we have the same favorite sheets. So that's a very exciting thing that you can brag about is that you, Kris Jenner, and Oprah all love these sheets. So whatever you buy, you get 40% off. And don't forget, like this is right in time for Mother's Day. So if you have a very special someone who is a mother or a new mother or is planning or becoming a mother, I should say, these and you want to like maybe find a gift for the mother, not just the child or children. In my case, having twins, many people have multiples. You can then buy these sheet sets or these pajamas. And these pajamas, by the way, are totally breastfeeding friendly. So when you have someone in your life who maybe is a new mom or a nursing mom, these are another great way to say, hey, I'm thinking of you. Here's a gift for you. Because the kids are usually the ones that are the focus when it comes to gift time, not necessarily the mothers. So, anyway, that's my advice for you. Is to really lean into this promo code. 40% off is like the best discount that you will find on Cozy Earth or with Cozy Earth. It's really, really competitive. So if you go to cozyearth.com, use the human HR code, and again, get 40% off their best-selling sheets, pajamas, towels, and so much more. And if you get a post-purchase survey, please let them know that you found out about Cozy Earth right here at the Bringing the Human Back to Human Resources podcast. The first thing that I bought, of course, were those pajamas. I also bought more pillowcases because I have probably too many pillows for one bed. And I was like, I just like and when everything matches. So definitely get out there, get to the code, use it before you can't use it anymore, and buy those mothers some gifts. They've earned it and they deserve it. So again, prioritize sleep, prioritize you, sleep better with Cozy Earth, and be like me and enjoy the comforts of your own home. Welcome to the Bringing the Human Back to Human Resources podcast. I'm Traci Chernoff, and I've spent my entire professional career in HR. Each week, we'll explore the delicate balance between people and business with the aim to reconnect the two and create meaningful outcomes. Listen in as I share my own experiences, challenge the status quo, and chat with guests from various industries about our mission to bring the human back to human resources. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Bringing the Human Back to Human Resources podcast. Thank you so much for being here for another week. Guess what? It is my first solo episode in God knows how long. It has been weeks since I've done like an episode, just me, just you. And I don't know, maybe you missed these. Let me know. I've had a lot of guests on because there have been so many amazing topics to get in front of you. But I have to hear feedback from you. Do you like those guest episodes? Do you like these solo episodes? What do you want more of? Let me know. You can email me at contact@hrtraci.com. You can DM me on Instagram or Facebook. You can message me on LinkedIn. Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, they're all HR Traci. So whatever the website is, the URL /HR Traci, you can find me anywhere. You can also go to my website, hrtraci.com, and let me know your feedback there as well. And with my newsletter, you can always reply. So that said, this week, I want to talk about what HR work and roles actually look like, because there are still so many misconceptions, not only from people who are relying on HR partners, but more often than not from people who want to get into HR. I've spoken recently with a lot of people who are like, I really want to get into HR, or like maybe I want an HR job. And when I ask them why, what is it about HR that you're really interested in? A lot of the time, not every time, a lot of the time, there's like a totally warped view of what HR practitioners actually do. And it's not to say that every like it's a one size fits all. Obviously, there are different specialties within HR. There are different industries within HR, or like industries that require or need or rely on HR partners that could change or impact just what the job looks like. But there are some fundamental things that we have to get right. And so if you are someone who is maybe in like an HR adjacent role, whether you're like an office manager or in recruiting, and you find yourself saying that you want to get into HR, you might need a little bit more information. You might be a perfect fit for HR, but there are some instances where HR jobs are different than what we expect them to be, because working in HR is different than working with someone in HR. There is this like overt perception of when we're working with someone in HR, there's this overt perception of what the job is. But then when you're actually in the job, there's something totally different there, right? And that's with anything. Like I could think, oh yeah, being like a professional baseball player is probably so cool because you work out and you get to play a game for work. But that's my perception. That's not necessarily reality, right? So also, before I go on, look at this mic flag. Isn't it so cool? It has my logo. It says HR Traci, and then like around the sides of the circle, it says Bringing the Human Back to Human Resources. So this is a very new addition to the podcast world for me. And I'm really excited about it. I feel very official with a mic flag. So if you are watching this, you see it. If you're not watching this, um, take a look on Instagram in a few days when we post a video from, a clip from this episode. You'll see the mic flag. I feel really legit. Like, move over, journalists. Here I come. Anyway, okay, let's talk about this. So if you're new or to HR or trying to break in, there is probably this perception that you have around like HR helping people. And the thing is, it's just not that simple. When I started out, I don't even know if I had a perception of HR. I worked with really strong HR partners. I found them to be very helpful people, and I found them to be people that others in the business relied on. And so I think for me, I was like, oh yeah, like I could be that. I am that person for people. Like, it would be kind of cool if I was also that person. And so maybe I also had this perception like I would be able to help people. And taking us back, I used to work in where I kind of sharpened my knife, so to speak, was in Target. That's where had my first HR job, working in store. And the reality is, it's like so much more than that. Sure, you probably do help people at some level, at some point during the day, during the week, month, quarter, year, but that's not the job. Like, your job is not to help people. Your job is, in some ways, to have that outcome of like helping the team or guiding the team, helping managers, which ultimately does help people. But really, the job is to focus on the business needs and the employees' needs, mitigate risk, manage operations, and so on and so forth. And also, it depends on the role or the specialty that you have in HR. If you're an HR business partner or a generalist or a manager, you're going to have more interaction with people. And so you have this potential of helping people, hurting people, not being what people expect you to be, being everything people expect you to be. There's a lot there that we can break down. That's my background. And then you have like HR jobs that are payroll or benefits or compensation focused or admin focused or coordinator focused or talent management focused, performance management focused. Like, it's everything, right? There's so many facets to this. If someone is in payroll and compensation and benefits, they're not necessarily interacting with the team much. So when it comes to like helping people, that's not really the thing that they're doing. They're managing a lot of operations, looking at how to manage a budget, potentially effectively, like executing on some of those operational things. Some of the most intelligent, strategic, innovative, interesting people that I've ever worked with have been in comp and ben. People who are very analytical, take this sum of money and think about how they can take that, compare it to like market data and research, and create this whole compensation strategy as a result. Like, it's really fascinating, people who are in compensation and like where they or how they impact an organization. Like, it's really phenomenal. If I'm sure that there are people listening who have worked with comp and ben people, they are like, when you find someone really good in that, like, don't lose them. They're amazing. Anyway, let's talk about what people think HR is. Some common expectations, of course, from people entering HR, especially, are that they love people, so HR makes sense, or they want to make workplaces better, or that they're a great listener and they'd be good at conflict resolution. And these are good instincts. These are good, initial iterative moments where we're thinking about like what HR is, but they're incomplete thoughts. So, for example, I love people, so HR makes sense. HR can really expose to you the downsides of working with people. It is very hard to work with people. And as much as like I love people, but I also find it very challenging sometimes to work with people, not because like, I get frustrated in things. That's not really like my personality. No, it's instead because in HR, you have this like responsibility, especially in my role where it's like more of a generalist adjacent, like business partner, like that track, right? I find myself having to do a lot of influencing. And influencing is very hard because there isn't necessarily this like problem, solve it, problem, solve it. Oh, now that's solved, like let's move on. It's not like that. It's like a constant uphill battle, especially depending on who you're working with. And if the people that you're working with don't like necessarily trust or believe in like that methodology or that focus or that the reasoning, you have even more uphill battles. You have to like really, really build a lot of relationships, get people to feel, part of that solution. And it's not necessarily this like, oh, I love people, HR makes sense, I'm going to love this job. You have to really be okay with not always seeing eye to eye with people, getting a lot of pushback, having difficult situations that you have to overcome, and then being able to move on from that and keep the ball rolling. And that's not something that everyone is capable of doing or actually enjoys doing. This, I want to make workplaces better. That's great. But actually, I would say that you can do that in any job. Anyone and everyone influences and impacts cultures and workplaces. And for people who maybe don't see that responsibility within themselves because they're not in HR and they think it's just an HR job, probably are contributing negatively to workplaces. So you've heard it here first. If you don't think that you're impacting a workplace, you are. And so if you have other interests outside of HR, like you can do that elsewhere. HR is like, there is of course that element there where you impact a workplace or you make things better for people or you improve a culture. But if you're working in payroll, if you're working as an HR admin, you might not feel that direct link. Even though if you ask me, of course there's a direct link, because when people, see their promotions happen effective, on the date that they're told that they're going to be promoted, and they don't have any issues with their pay and they don't have any issues with their org structure, things are moving smoothly, then that creates a great experience for them, right? But it's not necessarily so A to B. It's kind of like A to D to Z to B to C. It's like it's a little bit more triangulated when you're in a role that isn't necessarily direct to the employee. Um, but again, you do still impact the workplace, but you really can impact the workplace and do impact the workplace in any role. With this other common expectation around like, oh, I'm a great listener, I'd be good at conflict resolution. Listening is 20% of it. The other 20% is being able to problem solve. The other 20% is being able to strategize. What am I at? 60%. The other 20% is, I'm like adding the percentages here. The other 20% is actually being able to influence those who are maybe like part of the conflict. And then the other 20% is figuring out how you come back from that and how you ensure that that doesn't happen again. So it's not just about being good at conflict resolution, it's understanding what conflict resolution actually looks like and what is required of you when you are resolving conflict. And by the way, not everyone is good at resolving conflict. And so when it comes to like employee relations issues, when you are working in HR, not everyone actually enjoys employee relations. Most people will say, do not allow me to manage employee relations, or do not expect me to manage employee relations issues, because it can be very challenging and it can be very exhausting, frankly. And so when it comes to conflict resolution, that's also just not always part of every HR job. Some HR jobs don't ever expect employee relations resolutions or managing from certain people. Again, when we look at payroll or performance management, sometimes it kind of depends on like how big the organization is and how many people there are within HR. But especially for more administrative roles like payroll, comp and ben, even HR admin, like you're not going to be dealing with ER. So it doesn't matter if you're a good listener. It doesn't matter if you're good at conflict resolution, because you're not necessarily really going to have to deal with that. If you're on the HR business partner, generalist, director, manager track, like in that in that arena, so to speak, you're going to be doing a lot of conflict resolution. And just because you're a good listener does not mean that you're good at it. And so you have to really know what you're good at in order to assess like where within HR you should or should not sit. I know I'm not great at payroll. It's just not the way my brain works. I don't really enjoy it. So I've said this before on the podcast, like I'll never take a job or be interested in a job that requires me to manage payroll. And that's fine. I don't need to do that. I am a conflict resolver and a strategic person, and I like to help people with their problems and solve those problems with them and guide managers to managing their teams better and being stronger leaders and all of that stuff that comes with, a strategic approach to things. And that's why I'm like a director and a business partner within my role. And this is all stuff that you do learn on the job also. Like you could say all of these things that you think HR is, and um, you could still get in the job and realize that you like other things, and that's okay. So let's talk about what HR actually is. Of course, there's a lot of administration. You don't always get to build like cool programs and things like that. You're very often maintaining systems and tracking metrics and answering questions, and potentially answering the same question like 15 times. You could send an email with all of the answers, and you will still get questions to those to that email or to the communication that you've just sent, and you have to be okay with that. It's just part of the job, and every job has that thing about it, right? It has that admin heavy element to it, or whatever that potential quote unquote downside might be for that role. Like it exists in every job. There's also a lot of compliance and risk mitigation. So sometimes your job is just simply to say no or to hold the line when someone, whether a manager or otherwise, wants to skip a process or do something differently. For example, like I've had in my experience where people are like, oh, I'm just going to terminate this person. Like they're just not working out. And I'm like, no, you can't do that. That's just not the way things work. We have to understand, like, what are the reasons? How are we doing this? What's the communication? What's your plan for backfilling? Do you have like reasonability? Is this person going to be surprised? Have you talked to this person about their performance before? You're eliminating a role. Why? What does that look like? Do you understand you can't fill that role for another year? If you create another role, it has to be distinctly different, or it has to not be in the same location. Like there are so many things. I just rattled off, I don't even know, 20 or so things that come with managing risk, mitigating risk, and compliance. And depending on the role that you're in, that looks a little bit different. If you're in payroll, you have to think about shift differentials and predictive scheduling and overtime and things like that. And if you're on a business partner side, you have to do all of those things too. And you have to know employment law, and you have to know when to partner with an attorney, when not to partner with an attorney, when you can assert a decision without that partnership. Like there's just so much. And some people, don't necessarily understand all that comes with that and how impactful it is on the role. And of course, still dependent on the role that someone's doing in HR, but it is very much embedded in an HR job. Also, when you're in the middle of like complex, potentially highly emotional situations, things are not always solved in a clean way or in a way where people are without their emotional response. And you have to kind of manage through that. People will yell at you, they'll cry with you, meaning like in front of you, they will be angry with you, they'll be upset, they'll ask why, they'll tell you that they know it's not your decision or that they know it's not your fault, and you're going to feel like crap sometimes, maybe all of the time. And you have to be able to let it roll off your shoulder. When someone yells at you because you're, communicating a change to their employment with their manager, like it's a totally sucky situation no matter what way you fold it, but you have to be able to process that feeling and move on. And you also have to keep the momentum within the organization while you move on from that. And it can be very tough. I've spoken with HR practitioners before who say, I just couldn't do it anymore. It was too emotionally exhausting. especially for people who are deeply involved in ER issues. Most of my jobs, it was like 60% ER. At least most of my retail jobs. Now I don't really deal with ER as much. But it is exhausting. You have to really know how to process all of that stuff that you deal with and that you're confronted with when you're dealing with ER, because you're also sometimes making very difficult decisions. And sometimes the decisions don't always feel right, but they are what's right for the business. And again, you have to be able to deal with that. And you can't really talk to anyone about how you're feeling unless it's another HR person that is like on a similar level to you, because of, whether it's confidential or whether it's sensitive, whatever it might be. So you also have to kind of just like deal with it on your own and process that on your own. And again, not a lot of people are really good at that or want to do that. Um, and I've always talked about how HR is strategic, but it's not always exciting. And so, like, whether it's workforce planning and analyzing your headcount, figuring out what performance systems work and what don't work. These are the quiet things in the background that are strategic, but don't necessarily feel very fulfilling or don't necessarily invoke a lot of excitement. And that's like a very real reality that, there are all of these things that allow you to be strategic in a business and really drive an organization's um, planning and strategy and development forward. And especially as grow in your career and you become like more senior, you have even more of an influence and your hands are even more involved in that. But it's just not always that fun. And so, depending on what really excites you or what you're looking for, some people don't necessarily need excitement. But if you feel, challenged, or if you want to feel a challenge, sometimes being involved in strategic projects, as much as they are strategic, don't necessarily feel like a challenge. So, all of these things are really important to know about, that there is this strategic side of things, but it's not necessarily, as exciting as one might think. It kind of depends. I find things like that to be very exciting, but do I think that when I'm analyzing our head count that I'm having like the most fun ever? No, most of the time I'm like, why can't we figure out where this one person went? Like, is it a transfer? Was it a term? Like, where were they last month? And so like sometimes you like want to pull your hair out when you're doing strategic work. Other times you're like, whoa, that was really cool. So it's all an ebb and flow, right? And then also something that's, you know, fundamental is that there's like this duality in loyalty. There's the, balancing support for employees and their goals, and then also balancing what the company needs and the company's goals and how we drive that forward. And it's a very hard space to live in, managing both. And this is where that misconception of like, oh, HR is two-faced, quote unquote, comes from. And it's not that. It's just that you have to be able to live in the gray and you have to be able to manage the duality of an HR role. And regardless of whether you're in payroll or you're an HR business partner or you're an admin, there's always that duality. People are going to ask you questions and you're going to have to assert the business direction. And that doesn't always uh, go hand in hand with helping employees, for example, or building better workplaces. Some people will be really pissed at the direction or the decision of a business, but you have to be able to assert that without really wavering or giving information on what your feelings are, because it's irrelevant in that moment, right? Like you have to be able to take that employee's feelings and help them work through those feelings so that they can understand the business direction. So, I've talked a lot about what we think HR is, what HR actually is, but I'm going to also tell you what makes working in HR still worth it, because I love my career. I love that I've picked this as a thing to do for the rest of my life, right? In terms of like work. And the thing is that HR isn't only admin or compliance. It's really the potential to change how people experience work. Fundamentally, full stop, end to end. They can experience work from the moment they're interviewed to the moment they leave a company. And that full end-to-end experience is what you have the potential of impacting when you work in HR. If you're in recruiting, you have the potential to really set them up for success in their full interview process. And then as they move into onboarding, if you work in HR, whether it's payroll, comp and ben, HR business partner, generalist, etc., you have the ability to impact what that onboarding feels like, what that employee experience feels like, and then what it feels like when they're offboarding. And that offboarding experience is also so important because that's what determines whether they're like, oh, I loved working at that company, or like, you know what, I'm glad I left. And there's really so much impact that we have on that full end-to-end experience. So take that and run with it. Feel inspired by that. And over time, you do become the trusted advisor, the coach, the strategist. And that's amazing. That's like what I aspire to be for every single person that I ever work with in my entire life, is like this trusted person, an advisor, someone who's strategic, can be relied on. Like that's, if you ask me what success looks like, it's that. If every single person that I ever work with is able to say that, I've won. And that looks different for for everyone. Someone in payroll is like, I just want to be the person that never has a pay issue. And that's great. That's someone who's trusted, who is, really analytical and detailed. So whatever it is, you will get there. It's just knowing that it takes time. And then, of course, the moments that do feel human, which obviously is a very important part of my world. Obviously, it's the whole like ethos behind this podcast, but supporting someone, whether it's through a tough transition or creating a better parental leave policy, seeing people grow and get promoted and develop in their roles. These are the moments that really matter and that we have to really like reflect on. Parental leave policy is a great example of how you have a strategic project, and you really are helping people and you're impacting their lives and their families' lives. And that's really cool to be able to do that. And for those of you who are starting out, of course, hopefully you see like that still worth it piece of this conversation as something that continues to inspire you to pursue this career. But I would recommend that you're curious about all aspects of HR. Don't skip over the boring stuff, or like don't skip over payroll, something that I really don't enjoy, right? Like you have to go through all of it. My first HR role, I did everything. I was an HR generalist. I did everything. That's how I learned that I didn't like payroll. It wasn't because I like watched someone else do it. It's because I did it. And so this is where like learning about everything, getting involved in everything can make a huge difference. And get close to the business, understand how decisions are made and why those decisions are made, how they come about. Ask a lot of questions, get as involved as possible. And even if, maybe you don't want to be the one making those decisions, that's okay. If you can understand how they're made, why they're made, when they're made, it will help you to really look at things more holistically and have a better grasp of kind of what's going on just generally. Also, find a mentor, someone who can really guide you and help you to see the big picture. Mentors are hugely impactful on all of us, whether we're in HR or not. And just know that it's okay if you feel a little disillusioned too, like, especially after this conversation. If you're like, oh my gosh, I really thought I knew what HR was and I have no freaking idea based on what Traci said. That's okay. Don't feel like you're not cut out for HR or that this is the wrong career. It's all about asking those questions, finding a mentor, getting to know someone. I've had people reach out on LinkedIn, say, hey, can I just like understand what your day to day looks like? Like, are you available for a 15-minute call? And I always say yes. Of course, maybe not always. It kind of depends, like if it's someone like trying to sell me on something versus someone actually interested in breaking into HR. Like if you're actually just interested in this career, spend some time with me. I'm happy to schedule 15 minutes with you to go over what my day to day looks like or to expand on this conversation. Do it with anyone, someone maybe that you have seen on LinkedIn, or maybe even in your own organizations, who is in HR and is doing a really good job. I'm sure that they would love the opportunity to share a bit more. And if you, if you like listen to this podcast and you're like, oh, maybe this is not the right career for me, don't stop just yet. Just ask those questions, find someone that you can either shadow or ask more of, and really try to understand, like, is there a certain part of this that you really want to pursue? Is there something else that you want to find out about? Asking questions is often like the best thing that we can do in our personal lives, professional, and especially in this type of situation. And then, of course, something that I always reiterate is that you don't have to know exactly what you want to do in HR today, and you certainly don't have to do it all. You can find your lane, find your niche, and really lean into it, lean into that specialty. And whether it's people analytics or operations or DE&I or payroll or compliance or whatever it is, you can really lean in. There are so many facets of HR and so many specialties that you can really just specialize in, be a part of, and grow your career within. And so on that note, while HR isn't always what we expect it to be, it's really one of the few places where I would say we can drive an impact between, this, or at least in this intersection between people and businesses. It's the whole reason why I started this podcast, to try and really give back to HR leaders and non-HR leaders. And I think that's really, really powerful to really think about, like, leaning into that gray area where people and businesses come together, and how we really, figure out what that, like, best case scenario looks like when the business is happy and thriving and when the people in the business are happy and thriving. If we can solve that, we're doing an amazing job. Or maybe it's not even solving, but if we can improve that, if we can have an impact, that's an amazing thing. And it's really fulfilling. And if you're currently an HR leader, I would love to know, like, what were your previous perceptions of HR? Were they accurate? Were they misconceptions? Like, what did you expect? Is your job what you expected it to be? Maybe you reflect on your first job in HR or your most recent job in HR. We've all been there where we're like, oh, even like when we've been in HR for a long time, maybe we go to a new job and we're like, oh, I thought this was going to be totally different than it is. And that's okay too. So I would love to hear your reflections on this. So please email me, contact@hrtraci.com. DM me on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. Let's get connected. I'd love to hear your reflections. You can also comment if you're on Spotify or YouTube watching this. And I always post the episode material on LinkedIn and social media and stuff like that. So you can always comment there also. But in any case, if you are interested in breaking into HR, I hope this gave you a little bit more insight. If you're already in HR and you're like, oh, this is totally it, or like, no, there were other misconceptions that we didn't talk about, let me know. I'm interested to hear. I hope you enjoyed this solo episode. I have so many amazing guest episodes coming up, and another policy pulse coming up for the month of May. So please, continue to listen, subscribe, rate, review, whatever you've got to do to engage with my podcast. Really appreciate you being here. And I appreciate your feedback as well. So have a wonderful rest of your week. Looking forward to hearing your feedback, and I'll see you next week for our next episode. Hey, just before you go, don't forget to subscribe to this show so that you are the first to hear when an episode drops each week. And maybe leave a 5-star review and a comment about how much you loved this episode. Plus, if you have someone in mind who would really enjoy this episode, make sure you share it with them. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you next week.